more comfortable with praying as a community. And that is something that has been really life-giving to people, to read Scripture for themselves, to find their own spiritual voice. The last thing that I'm going to mention are two practices that we do daily. And that is every day we open and close our church office with a prayer, and not just an invitation, but a full 20 to 30 minute prayer services where we actually chant psalms in the old monastic style. We have a few church members here with us today who have been to this service, and it's very calm, it's very slow, it's interspersed with a lot of silence and a lot of just waiting to hear the voice of God. And in that space, we found that it's very mentally soothing, and we're able to bring a lot of life to our people. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you.
Amen. I'm so excited to be here. My subject is how can we give mental illness a voice in our faith-based communities? And I have not a lot of scriptures, but I'm going to be very scriptural. I want to say I was kind of overwhelmed because that is my daughter, Brandy, and that's the first time I've heard her testimony. And you don't know my story. And so I kind of changed it because I am a woman of faith. I'm a minister. Been in ministry for the last 20 years, so that means through Brandy's entire experience, I was in ministry. And now here in Kalamazoo, we don't attend the same church, but in Illinois, when she first started struggling, we were at a church together. And I was really in ministry. I worked right with the bishop, so I was right there. And when I said they said I could change it. I want to go from the point of how I wish the church had helped me. How about that?
Amen.
And I came in here and I thought about this story in the Word, and it says the story about the man that got beat up by the side of the road and all the church people walked past him. All the church people walked past him. Then I think it was a Pharisee that came down. And somebody would say Samaritan. Thank you, because I didn't read that one. That just came to me. So if I say something wrong, take it because I'm excited. But I do know the Word. But the Samaritan came and you know, the Samaritan Jews couldn't even hang out together. It was just not supposed to. But that's who took him. And so one of the things I used to feel as I sat in my church, I would feel that I had been left on the side of the road, left for dead. Because I didn't know when my daughter was going to be successful. Because when people are suicidal at some point, if they don't get delivered, then they be successful. And they die. And to be a mother and a woman of faith in a body of faith, waiting on your daughter to die while you pray that she doesn't. People have asked me, how did I do that? And all I can say is, but God. It was 8 years. Or 6 years. 6 years. But she was 18 when she really got aggressive. I knew before, but I couldn't get a handle on it, but I could tell. And so the first time she did it, I did what I needed to do. I went to church. Because I'm an exposer. I'm exposed to the enemy for what he's worth, which means you got to say it. When it comes to my baby's life, I had no shame.
Amen.
I had no shame. Like Pam, you know, I had no shame. And so a whole lot of people knew. A whole lot of people knew what was happening. I'm one of 10 children from a church family. And at this point, there are 9 of us living. I have 3 brothers that are pastors. 4 of us girls are evangelists, ministers, and missionaries. They knew. The body of Christ knew. Ask me what they did. Nothing. Not for her or for me. Isn't that kind of sad? The only time I got a response is when she had an episode and she'd be in the hospital. But when she got out, nothing. To the point where I ain't tell people when she went to the hospital. It was just her and I. And the good Jesus, as my daddy would say. Me and Brandy and the good Jesus. The good Jesus. And I say that because he brought us through. Because that kind of pressure would have made me lose my mind. But God kept me. So one of the scriptures I want to talk about, when we talk about what can the church do, and the Bible gives us so many instructions. In Romans 15:1, it says, we then that are strong ought to bear the infirmities of the weak. You can't bear my infirmity if you ain't with me. You cannot help me bear my infirmities if you across the street. You have to stop thinking, looking at what I look like, because just because I'm having a rough time don't mean I gotta look rough. I'm cute. I have to stay cute. I mean, why do I have to look pitiful? Because my life is jacked up. I'm not gonna look pitiful. My heart is broke. And you know my heart is broke because my daughter's trying to check out. How can my heart not be broke? But because we look right, y'all still look, and I say y'all speaking in generic, y'all watched us. Okay. There's a story in St. John, the 9th chapter, and it talks about the blind man. And the disciples asked Jesus, who sinned so he could be blind? And the Lord said, nobody, but that the glory of God may be revealed. So many times, we want to figure out why instead of trying to help. It ain't none of your business. We did this for her. Where's she been? What kind of life does she live? She must have used some drugs. Her daddy must be messing her. They must, this is what really got me. Y'all must be faking because y'all seem so right at church, but that could be happening at home. Y'all must be faking. Ooh, that was the day I found out I was saved. Because I wanted to snatch it because the pressure. You know, I'm already stressed, and now you go come up on me? And I'll take my glasses and my earrings off. Seriously, but you don't know what people do when they get under that kind of pressure. So don't try to figure out why. Ask God, what do I do? Amen. My daughter didn't need a scripture because she got the scripture. She needed the scriptures activated. And you activate the word in people's life by loving them. Amen. When you love them, all them scriptures say boom. Okay, I got to hurry up. Okay. The last thing I'm going to say is there's another scripture that said, Jesus was telling the Pharisees and the church people, you know, he was saying, when you fed me, he was tricking them into a conversation. When I was hungry, you fed me. When I was blind, you helped me. When I was naked. And they said, when did we do that? So he already knew they did, but he said, whatever you do to the least of them, that's what you've done to me. When people are struggling with mental illnesses and struggling, and their families, one more time, and their families, because they go together, they become the least. And if you don't treat them right, you ain't doing Jesus right. And I don't care how much you pray and shout and hallelujah, God will remember that you walked past the boners. And they needed your help. But today we got the victory. Amen. We had a benediction after that.
Giving all praise and honor and glory to God, my Lord and Savior Jesus, who is the living Christ. I'm just happy to be here on today. I want to jump right into this about the mental health care system in the United States. It's often described as dysfunctional and even in its care for people with mental illness and developmental disabilities. So my question is, how can we advocate making this a more user-friendly system for people, Pastor Wallace, with mental illness and developmental disabilities? So if you learned earlier, I spent the last 7.5, almost 8 years of my life serving in a public capacity as an elected official here in the city of Kalamazoo. And one of the very first things that I learned, Karika, when I walked into City Hall was how we, women, people of color, poor people, children, families, neighborhoods, have been left out of the decision-making process because we had not had an advocate on our behalf really sitting at the table and talking about these are the policies that we need to bring some relief to our families. And when we go through the budget process, making sure we're allocating funding that supports those policies so that we can have the same fair and equal access and opportunities as everyone else has. And so In the beginning, I grew a little weary because it was tiresome. You know me, I like to fight, and I was fighting every day with the folk downtown. And then I learned how Mona Lisa to work smart. And so I started going back in the neighborhood, I started talking to people and bringing people with me, and we started addressing the real issues. And so when we're talking about families who are caretaking, loving, and supporting individuals that are living with mental illness and or developmental delays, we have to talk about a support system and a care system that can help these families not just cope, but to live and live abundantly the way that God has had us to do. And so I think that out of all that we hear today, one of the things that we have to walk away, that one of the most important things is participating in democracy, making sure that you have a representative, an advocate, Minister Robinson, that is at the decision-making table. Bertha Stewart, you know better than me that we have providers who are not multiculturally competent, who are not people of color, who are not adequately serving individuals who are struggling on a day-to-day basis. That's a whole separate conversation from today, but still you need that advocate that starts having that conversation. I heard you say, Pastor Wallace, at community mental health, to make sure we are bringing people, licensing them, giving them the opportunity to serve individuals in our community that look like us, that struggle like us, that need the same health care, access, and accessibility as our counterparts who have the money and the health care insurance. Then we have to make sure that we're having healthy dialogue within our community. And it's okay that you have a representative or elected official that's downtown in the State House that does that, but you have to make sure that that connection from government to the community really exists. Right. Because we have to hear these stories. We have to understand what's happening to people so that we can take those barriers, extract those barriers from those conversations and go back to the table and say, hey, this policy does not work. This policy is the reason why our sister so-and-so is not prospering in the system. And so we need to do something entirely different. And we have to make sure that we have relationships with the Christian community. That spirituality is going to play out in everything. I don't care if it's in City Hall, the State Hall, the White House. We have to make sure that we are taking the love of God, the Spirit of God with us everywhere we go. I unapologetically sit up on that dais every Monday night, and I know that Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior. I will tell them that whatever we do, however we do it, Pastor Wiles, we ought to seek Him first. And so you need that. That is very, very important. When we talk about the system, we can talk about Mona Lisa, how people do not have access to adequate health care, how they do not have a home health care provider that is giving them referrals to get mental health services. But then we also have to have that same conversation with our leaders in the community and in the church. Because back in my grandma's day, we lay hands, we pray, and we believe for deliverance. So it's not one or the other, Caretha Phillips, it's both. We have to have a dual, a strategy to make sure we are getting at the heart of the matter. And then I want to also talk about how just because I'm an elected official or I'm considered to be a community leader, we perceive people that look good don't struggle. Right. I was molested as a child. I dealt with depression, which led to obesity, which led to anxiety, which led to me dealing with things through my marriage, through my children, so failed marriage, children with issues. And we look at people and say, she look good, she ride good, so she all right. Right. We all have fallen short of the glory of God. We all deserve the love of God. And we got to do better at embracing people. I was sitting in church a few months ago, and some people didn't look like us, didn't smell like us, was sitting right in front of me. And by God, I was happy because these folks came in the house. Mm-hmm. Most folks won't come in the house because they are perceived to be judged. And most of the folks was welcoming, was all right. But there was a nice handful of folks, Caretha, that was like, in the house of the Lord. If you can't come into the Lord's house and feel safe and comforted and accepted and get that abundance, that worship experience, then where else can you go? And so it's important that as we continue to have these dialogues, that we be real about it. We keep it real, and that we are making sure that we have an action plan in place when it comes to policy, making sure we have the right things that, you talked about the policy, that the federal policy has in place, making sure that we're advocating for the funding of those policies, making sure we're advocating for the agencies and the organizations that are truly servicing the people in need, but also making sure we have that community and that spiritual connection, because that's how, as a community, we really, really heal. And I want to say this one last thing. What's happening in Ferguson, Missouri, one of the things that I love the most that's happening is they have these healing centers all over the community. They have women laying their hands on children. They're allowing them to express, to release, to let that stress, that anxiety, that anger, all of that go. Because until you release that, there's no way you can make the right decisions to do the things that you were called and born to do. And so I think we need to look at that practice overall, how we allow people to really release, be themselves, and get the adequate health care that we all need. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you to the panelists who all had wonderful responses to the questions that were given to you. It is now time for us to entertain questions from the audience. And I don't know if there's a way we can get the lights turned up just a little, please. So, yes. And he said, let there be light. So now, I'm going to call Ministers Curtis and Pamela up to help with this, and then we can go from there. So.
Now, as we go further, this is your opportunity to share and ask questions that you might have. So at this time, we want to ask if someone has a first question that they would like to ask.
Hello, my name is Rachel. I'm Eddie's daughter. I guess anybody can answer this, if somebody has an interest in it, but what do you find our community members, like, primary frustrations with their secular care? So, like, not the church, but maybe the doctors, psychiatrists, medication, or what do you find that they're frustrated with that makes them kind of want to cop out of their secular care? Does that make sense?
I'll take a quick crack at it, but most times it's not a welcoming environment. And then it's the fact that they're not culturally competent, or the fact that they don't have access to people of color providers. And so when you get in there and you can't find someone that looks like you, that you feel like you connect to and identify to you, that makes a huge barrier to feeling like you can't get adequate care. But I know there's time, I'm gonna speak personally for me. I went into my doctor's office, I'm not there anymore, but I went there before, and there was nothing, no magazine, no picture on the wall, no staff, receptionist, nurse, janitor, nothing at all. And it was just, it did not feel welcoming to me at all, and I felt very, very out of place. And so, yeah, I left. And so that is one of the biggest things. And I think, too, access in terms of transportation, because sometimes they're so far away. So having the ability to get back and forth to get continued care.
And I have because I've shared my daughter and my testimony, I get a lot of people in church that come up to me with mental issues, and their frustration is, and thank God it's changing, is that during secular, it's just secular. That it is secular. That's and so many of people that are church, they have an issue with God because of their situation. They have an issue with the church that keeps them in bondage. In addition, because that's how the enemy works, and so they stop going. Period, because they need to talk about that spiritual piece. And so in the church world, that is a huge problem when they go to secular. And I have one now, I'm trying to connect with the spiritual so she can get both of them so she can get delivered. But that's huge. That's huge.
It's not on the list here, but I want to ask about young people who have parents that are mentally ill. And I want you all to think about, particularly our middle school students, who are going through a rough, adolescent time. And they go home to a father or a mother that is mentally ill. That is one of the most silent disparities in this county. And I want somebody to talk to that, because these children are hurting and nobody's noticing it.
I think that it is noticed, because what happens is it comes out in their behavior, in their absence from school. The children are really screaming for help in a lot of different ways, where the focus then becomes on the children because of negative behavior, and not necessarily because I need some help at home, my mom and daddy need some support. And it's been my experience working so close in the community that a lot of times the agencies, the organizations, and even the schools, when they attempt to step in, they step in to punish and to penalize. Now here comes CPS, here comes DHS, now we gotta remove, now we gotta, and so that is the wrong approach, where you should be saying, this family needs some help, there's mental health issues, developmental delays, and that we should put together a support system that does not penalize, but that it really helps to strengthen and structure the family. And every now and then, Karitha, you get that, but more often than not, you get the folks that just come in, snatch, remove, or you get the folks who do nothing at all other than suspend, expel, and just leave folks to their own devices. And I think it's up to us, the church, other agencies or organizations, that we're so deep rooted in the community that we help to identify these families, and we help to provide that support, that connection to the church and to spirituality. But more importantly, do the training and education, Minister Robinson, to these agencies and organizations who know how to identify with and deal with these families struggling with these issues.
That's good, and I just wanted to add that I see every day people that I work with, families that I work with, that are actually afraid to seek assistance, because just what Commissioner Stephanie said, they are afraid that the system is going to get involved and they're going to remove those kids and all. And so what has occurred is, in our private practice and in other private practices, now DHS and some of the other agencies, Family and Children and Services and whatnot, they are seeking out, because I've got to be honest, I do some cultural training at DHS with the workers. And the actual director of DHS shared with me that he isn't completely competent in the area of serving African Americans, and so that is why I go in and I actually do the training with the workers. And so now they are purposely seeking out African American clinicians to service those families. They know that there's a lack of understanding there. So they are, I have to say that they are trying, but that's why our families have to oftentimes be mandated to go out and get those services. They won't just go out and seek them on their own. Oftentimes they are made to go, and if they don't go, then their benefits are sanctioned or the kids are removed and those types of things. So we are aware of the problem, but it is just continually to go on because of the things that I mentioned and all. But send them to places like the urban zone, where the Emerging Hope program is, Robinson and Robinson Christian Counseling. We have Val Cunningham there. She has a practice, an African American clinician, and we have also Caucasian clinicians that work in our building that are culturally competent. And so not everyone that isn't of the same culture isn't able to embrace, but there are many that aren't, but there are many that are. There are many that are, and they're out there and they're available. So send the families and encourage them to come out. Encourage them to seek the help. Randy said that she had to force herself to talk about it. Sometimes you got to push past that barrier, and you will find the support that you need. They're not in, yes.
I would just say, being an educator, if the principals meet certain times out at K-Risa, go into the schools, and like me coming here today, I didn't know all the details, and I'm a professional in the community. I didn't know all the services they provide, and I know of children. I did a project with Commissioner Moore, when she started the project, and then identified several children that needed money. And she had to kind of shift the program to meet their needs. So I think that the principals, I'm serious. Like, I know, I hear what you all are saying about DHS, but I'm sharing with you that there is a great need of young people that are walking around in a fog. And I would encourage you to get with the districts. I mean, I'm gonna even do it now that I know exactly what you and your husband do, to work with these young people that have experienced issues and their concerns, because she can't be everywhere even though she thinks she can. But we need you. Amen.
Well, can I just say real quick?
Yes.
The problem is too, as Kalamazoo has one of the highest rates of resources, that information, there's a huge disconnect. So from the schools, from the organizations, from the churches, especially to the families, there's a huge disconnect. And so we can't just totally leave it on the school district because, you know, they're really supposed to teach our kids. So we have to step up and take responsibility to have more community-based outreach and connect these families. Because in the schools, you got communities in schools. You got Western sitting on top of the hill, which has a college of health and human services. They got social workers, you know. So we have a wealth of resources that we are not utilizing to our benefit. So, and sometimes we can be a little territorial. I agree, we need to make sure that the folks are introduced, but that it has to be, Karika, an expectation from systems levels, from DHS, from CPS, from KPS, from all of that, that we will connect these families to multicultural competent, you know, physicians and clinicians and social workers and all that good stuff. And lastly, I would say, I don't think it's totally bad to be caught up in the system with CPS and stuff like that, because then you get resources. Then you can get some help. Sometimes the help is questionable.
Next question. I'm from South Bend, and they had a program there. I don't know if Kalamazoo has anything like that here, where, like for the young mothers, and somebody will come to their house and share the resources. They need to get doctor appointments and different things like that. I don't know if there's anything here in Kalamazoo that is offered to young people.
Kalamazoo has 211 Connect. You can dial 211 and state what your problem is, and they have a list of most of the resources in our community, and they'll direct you to it. So for a lot of the things we're talking about, and I know we got the cards at the city. I work for the city of Kalamazoo, and from the police department, from United Way, because they're kind of the sponsors of it. But you can get those cards and pass them out at your churches, pass them out at your agencies, keep them in your purse. So if somebody says something and you don't know where to send them, there is a way that we don't just have to leave people stranded. Because when a person comes and tell you they have a problem and get no response, they're very unlikely to tell anybody else. Something about you made them comfortable. So you need to have as much in your hip pocket as you can. Because my daughter and I have shared our testimony, and I shared my testimony, I was suicidal because of medication once. When I was in cancer treatment, thank God I'm 9 years out. But they gave me some medication, and I woke up one day and I started planning the suicide. And what caught my attention was I said I'd have to kill my daughter too, because I wouldn't leave her with these guys, because I only have a son. And then I hurt myself. But I know because of I'm educated, you know, I'm working on my master's, all that good stuff. I knew to go read all my medication and then to call my doctor. Everybody does not have that thought process. I wasn't deep in, and thank God that I hadn't got deep enough in it to where I even lost that kind of reasoning. So keep that. It's easy to remember. It's just 211, 211, and they call it as 24/7, and you will get a lot of help.
Thank you. I've heard families, and a lot of services are geared for children. up to 18. When a child reaches 18 and does not have family support and has gone through special ed services through school, all of a sudden hit 18, you're an adult. You're your own guardian. Where do you go?
Then there's also, our daughter is involved with community, Kalamazoo County Community Mental Health for adults with developmental disabilities, and then they also have a side for adults with mental illness. Now, she has a case manager under the developmental disabilities part of it, and they start at childhood, but they also have the adult unit from 18 all the way up. And their services, you have to have Medicaid, and if they don't have Medicaid, they will help them get that in place. And they have a case manager as well as someone to come into the home, whatever they might need. If they're willing to seek that treatment and follow that care plan, they can get the help. My daughter has had a case manager there for probably, she's 24, so probably since the age of 18 all the way up. So that help is out there. We just gotta get out there, seek it out, call the 211, get the resource list that's on the table, and there is support available.
And in addition to that, in response to the question here, we live in a time where we are just a .com from anything we want to know. And so we can take advantage of that as well. And sometimes people say, well, competency level perhaps is not there to look up things on the internet. But a lot of times I beg to differ with that, because if we can figure out how to sign up for Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and all of those things, if we really want to search for help, we can find out other things